Daf Kuf Lamed Ches Amud Beis will begin Kuf Lamed Ches Amud Aleph right at the bottom. V'amar Shmuel Mishum Rabbi Chia Kilas Chasonim, a canopy that are used for a chason, a special bed with a canopy that they use for a chason. Kilas Chasonim Mutal and Taisa Mutal Lefarka. There's no problem of an oil over here, of binyan over here. It's mutter to set it up and to take it down. When is this said? This is said only if on the top, the roof of it, the flat part on the roof, doesn't have a tefach width. Then we say it's not considered to be an oil, it's not considered to be a binyan, it's a mutter. But if it does have a tefach of width, then it's also. And even if it doesn't have a tefach of width, still it's only mutter. That's only if there's not a width within 3 of the top. So it's like a teepee. It comes to a narrow point on top. It's only if there's no horizontal portion of a tefach on top. And secondly, it has to be that within three of the top, it does not have a width of a tefach within 3 of the top of the teepee. And so it has to be that it does not widen out. It's very narrow. It doesn't widen out, so it doesn't have a tefach even within 3 of this top of the tent. Then it's awesome. And a third qualification, that's also only if it doesn't have on the slope a tefach. Meaning when it comes down, the teepee comes down, the tent comes down, there's no tefach from the midpoint, there's no tefach on either side. So you don't have a span of a tefach from the midpoint to the side on either side. But if you had that, then if you had it over there, if there is a tefach, then we consider the slope to be also as a form of a tent, and if this has therefore a tefach, therefore it would be considered to be also an oil. So it has to be where you don't have any of these 3 characteristics, then it's considered to be only temporary, and therefore it's mutter. From here, the Rosh brought akasha on the rif. We learned previously on the case of Rambam Recheskel that he said if the tent is tied with a rope from before Shabbos, it's mutter. The rif said that's only when it doesn't have a tefach. Right, the Rosh, well, if over there it only doesn't have a tefach, and even then you still have to have it tied with a string or rope from before Shabbos, and why is the kilas chasonim mutter? Elamai, the Rosh said, therefore, must be that the case of Rami Bar Cheskel is talking over there, where it does have a tefach of a horizontal roof of a tefach. It's mutter if it's tied with a rope from before Shabbos. A kilas chasonim doesn't have the rope, and therefore it's also if it has a tefach, a gag of a tefach. But for the Rosh, if it would be that even with the case of the rope, in the case of Rami Yecheskel, it's only if there's less than a tefach, and even there you need a rope. Why is the kilas chasonim mutter? The Noida Behira answers that the case of kilas chasonim is mutter because it's mesuken lakach. It's set up for this purpose, meaning it's clear that this is not your typical tent and won't become confused with tents. Therefore, you don't need the rope that's attached from beforehand. On other cases where it's not mesuken lakach, then without the rope from beforehand, it doesn't have that clear definition, the clarity that it is only an oil arai, and it's made to be open and closed, and it's not made as a permanent oil. Another qualification is the more continuous. That's only where on the sides the canopy doesn't hang down to the sides of the bed below the bed itself and hang down on the sides a tefach or more. Also, but if it does hang down a tefach or more, then it's also because that's considered to be the walls, and now you have walls, and the top is considered to be a tent, so you've made a tent, and it'll be also. If it hangs down from the sides of the bed, so then you have now the walls, the sides, and that's now considered to me that it's considered to be that you now have a tent. The Meforshim asks the kasha, then how are we allowed to spread a tablecloth on a table which hangs down to the sides? If it hangs down to the side, or to have a bed spread that hangs down, or a sheet that hangs down on the sides of the bed, a tefach or more. And the answer, though, because over there it's mutter by the tablecloth, it's mutter because it's never made to be an oil. It's just hanging down on the surface from the surface of the table down, but there's no tent, there's no roof over there. In the case of the kilos chasonim, there is a canopy, there is a roof, and now if it's hanging down to the sides from below the bed, hanging down more than a tefach, you have the walls, so it has the appearance of a tent, of a binyan. But on a tablecloth, there's no oil, though, and over there there's no roof, and therefore it does not have the appearance of a tent. A felt hat is mutter on Shabbos. It says that the hat is aser, like hashadis beitefach hadalas beitefach. If it has a tefach width, then if it has a tefach of a width, it's like an oil. So the brim of the hat extends out, and you have the extension of it hanging out, so it has like an oil of a tefach. But if there's no tefach, then it's mutter. Frankly, Gemara, well, if on a hat there is a consideration for an oil, it looks like a tent, and therefore you'd have an isser el miata sharbe beglima tefach. If one puts a talis and he extends it over his head, a tefach. You mean to say that it'd be chayv for such a case? So the way Rashi learns it is, there is no consideration of a tent, of an oil by a hat. The way Rashi learns it is, now we reject that premise. There's no consideration of an oil. What the issue over here is that something entirely different. We're afraid you're wearing a hat with a wide brim. A wind might come by, blow it off, and you might run after, pick it up, and come to carry it. So it's a gzera that you might come to carry. So there's a chilik. If it's tight to the head, we're not afraid that it'll fall off. It's mutter. If it's loose, then we are afraid that it's also. That's the way Rashi learns it. Other Rishonim learn differently. But Tosfos learns differently. Tosfos says, Hada mahadek, if it's mahadek, meaning that it's stiff, it doesn't bend down, then it has an oil. Then it has the appearance of an oil. And it's also, meaning we do apply the consideration of an oil to a hat. However, it only even has appearance of a roof if it's stiff. But if it's loy mahadek, if it's bent down, if it's soft, then it doesn't have an appearance of an oil and it's mutter. Other achronim explain differently, and they, based on other Rishonim, that yes, there is a consideration of an oil by a hat, not like Rashi. There is a consideration by a hat, but it depends also if it's made for sale, if it's made to give shade, or just to cover the head, or if it's shaped in a way that it's bent, or it protrudes straight out. This is a shaila in the Poskim. Do we have a consideration, an isser of a hat, mishum oil? Meaning, even if it's secure and we're not afraid that he might come to carry it, is there a problem of an oil or not? And this is a dion in the Poskim. Sholach le'Ram Bar Yechesel Rav Huna Emelan Izi Hanach Milimal Yosef Da'amar La Mishnei Derab Tati B'Shabbos V'Chara B'Tzar. So tell me over these teachings from Rav. Two are by Hilchos Shabbos and one is in general by the Torah. Sholach li answered as follows: that if you have a jug or a flask that, as we learned earlier, that you're allowed to stretch it over on posts, on poles, on a frame. They used to tie it and stretch it so that the contents of it would stay cool and fresh, and they used to put it on, stretch it, and tie it to this frame. So there's an oil consideration for that. So he says, how that we learn in the Brisa that the good bekisn, that they bag with the straps, mutalin taisa b'Shabbos, it's mutter to tie it and suspend them in Shabbos. So he says, Amar Rav, Leishan al Mishnei V'nei Adam. Where do we say it's mutter? That's only where two people are doing it. Meaning that we're not afraid that they'll tie it so tightly, and therefore it doesn't have the appearance of an oil. Aval b'adam echad also, but for one person to do it, it'd be also because they'll tie it tightly, and it's also. Rashi mentions that we learned previously, however, in the Brisa, that this is also, it's also midrabanan. So Rashi's machalik, and he says, where do we say that previously in the Brisa that it's also midrabanan? That's when the straps were not attached to it, fastened to it beforehand. But this case is talking where the straps were already fastened to it. So therefore, it has a heker, it's already masukin for this from before. So it's clear that it's made to tie and untie. And therefore, as long as it's not tied tightly, it's mutter. But by akila, by a canopy on a bed, it's even by 10 people it's also because it's impossible that they won't stretch it somewhat. That over there we are concerned that they will stretch it, and therefore it is also. Idach Maihi, what's the second case by Hilchos Shabbos? Idach Maihi Nesanya Kira Shenishmatu Achad Mi'achisa. If you have the stove, the kira that one of the legs were broken off. So the oven, that one of the legs of it broke off, mutal l'taltala, then it's mutter to be metaltal on Shabbos. It's still considered a kli. An oven that rests on three legs, it's wobbly, but it's still usable. It can still stand upright. So it's still considered a kli. It's a kli shemlach taliser, but it's still a kli, so it's mutter to be metaltal l'tzarech guf l'mekayma. But shtayim, if two legs are broken, also then it's also because it can't stand upright. It's no longer considered even a kli. So therefore, it's muksa and it's also. Rav Amar Afilu Chad Nami also. Rav said even one leg that's broken or removed, it's also. For a different reason, because we're afraid that he'll try to put back that leg and he might fasten it, and therefore it'll be like either makabipantish or boina, and therefore we're afraid that he might put it in and fix it tightly, and therefore it's also even one. Torah, what did he say regarding Torah? The Rav said, I'll see that that lost Lovai, there will become a time will come, when Torah will be forgotten from Yisrael. It says that the Rebbeinu Shalom will make extraordinary makas, will bring Rahman Aslan extraordinary makas. So haflo I don't know what it means behifla haflo, out of the norm, out of the ordinary. What's it referring to? It says in the pasuk that I will do extraordinary things for this people, and the continuation of the pasuk says, and the chachma of the chachma will be removed, will be forgotten. So we can learn out from here that the haflo, this extraordinary thing that it's referring to, is the Torah, and therefore Rav said, "See the Torah shetishtacham Yisrael," because that there won't be this Torah will be forgotten. Tan Rabbanan Kishenichs Rabbeinu Keren B'Yavna, when the Rabbanan came to Keren B'Yavna, that was where the Bezdin was at the after the time of the Churban. Omru, they said, they said the time will come when Torah will be forgotten, Rahman Islam, from Yisrael. Shenemar, the pasuk says, the time will come, Hashem says, and I'll place a famine in the land. The thirst, the hunger will be to hear the words of Hashem. It won't be Torah. Torah will be forgotten. People will want to be thirsty for the Dvar Hashem, and they won't find it. They'll travel from the sea to the sea and from north to east. They'll wander to find, to look, to search for the Dvar Hashem, and they won't find it. Dvar Hashem is halacha. So Dvar Hashem, they'll look for the Dvar Hashem. What is that? They'll try to find the halacha. What is the halacha? They won't find it. Dvar Hashem is kates. Dvar Hashem refers to the kates, the end of the golas. The Rashi says it's not clear where we have this reference that Dvar Hashem is the kates, but Taisus brings down the pasuk in Yirmiyah that says Lichlis Dvar Hashem mepi Yirmiyah, which refers to the end of the golas, to the kates. Dvar Hashem, it says, Dvar Hashem, that's what's referring to Dvar Hashem, Azu Nevuah. It says, Dvar Hashem, this is Nevuah. Like we find the pasuk of Hoshea, Dvar Hashem, Asher Hoya El Hoshea. What does it mean? It says refer that to when it says they'll search for the Dvar Hashem. The time will come when a woman will take a loaf of truma, bread made out of truma. The lay them to Mehim Tahir. She goes searching and to ask a shaila, is it Tomei, is it Torah? They ain't Maven. And no one will understand it properly, sufficiently, to give her a psak halacha to tell her if it's Tomei or Torah. Frank the Gemara, what does that mean? How can that be forgotten? Im Tahiriv, im Tamehi, Behajiksi, Be Mikol Oichal Sheyachel. It's an often a pasuk in the Torah. So an often a pasuk in the Torah won't be forgotten. And it says that if a sheretz comes into a tanur, then the food that's in the tanur is tummy. So what is the shiloh? Why won't she know if this bread, this loaf of bread made of truma is tummy Torah? Ella, what's the shiloh? Ella leida im rishonim im shniya. She won't know is it a rishon l'tumah or shein l'tumah, vein mavid, and no one will understand it sufficiently to give her a psak halacha. More. What do you mean no one will understand? It's also clear cut. It's enough in a Mishnah. If there is a dead sheretz from the Shemini Shrotzim in an oven, the bread has a din of shein l'tumah. So it's clear enough in a Mishnah that the bread has a din of shein l'tumah. Sha'atan tchila. The sheretz, the dead sheretz, is an avatuma. It's in the oven. The oven is a rishon l'tumah. The bread is a shein l'tumah, so it's also clear cut. It's enough in a Mishnah. More answers mistafek lahu ha da amali ravada brava l'rav. No, he has the shaila. People will have the shaila based on the following, because he said, Rava Barada said to Rava, why don't we say that when there's a dead sheretz in the oven, that l'chzaya hai tanura kimad mali tuma? Why don't you say that the tumah fills the oven? The dead sheretz is in the oven. Now, what we say is that even though it doesn't touch the oven, it's only in the airspace of the oven, but the tanur itself becomes tomei. It becomes tomei from the sheretz that's in the avir of the tanur. Well, he asks, if that's the case, that the avir is tomei, why do you say that the avir is matama the tanur and the tanur is matama the bread? Why don't you say the avar is matama simultaneously the bread and the oven? The airspace, look at it like the entire airspace is filled with tumah, and it's matama both the oven and the bread, and therefore the bread should be a rishon and not a sheni. So why don't we say l'chzaya hai tanur kimad mali tumah v'tave pas rishayim? We don't say that. The Sanya, because it says, you might say that kalim that are in the tanur should become tomei from the airspace of the kli cheres. Whatever is in the tanur should become tomei. What is that? That whatever is in the tanur is tomei. Food is bekabel tuma. Oichlin metama b'amar kli cheres. So it's only food that's metama. Vein kelim metama b'amar kli cheres, but not kelim. Meaning, we don't say that the airspace is commanded malatuma, and therefore the tanur and the contents are tame simultaneously. It's the process is that the tanur becomes tame from the sheretz that's in its airspace, and then that tanur is matama the contents. So therefore, number one is we don't say kemanda maletuma, because then kalim would become tame, but the kalim are not tame. The contents are tame, food, yes, but not kalim. Secondly, we learn out from here that kalim are not makabel tuma from a rishon tuma. Kalim, odom and kalim are makabel tuma from an av, but not from a rishon. Therefore, food that's inside the oven is makabel tuma, because the oven is a rishon tuma, and that rishon makes the kikar, the bread, a sheni. It makes the food a sheni. So we don't say that the aver is kamala tuma. And also, we say that kalim can't be kabel tuma from a rishon tuma, only from an av, and therefore kalim which are in a tanur will not become tame. That will become tame, but not kalim. And this people will not understand it sufficiently, losalova, and they won't be able to explain to the yisha what the kikar of the truma is. Is it a rishon? Is it a rishon or a sheni l'tuma? And not understand this concept that we don't say that it's command the maletuma. Tanya Roshim Yechayim Chas v'Shalom Shetishachtem Yisrael. It says Chas v'Shalom. No, we don't say Shetishach. Shenemar ki lo yisishach mipizara. It will never be forgotten. Elamani mekayim yishayt levakesh dvar Hashem v'lo yimso. What does it mean? We say they'll search for Hashem, they won't find. Shelo yimso. It means shelo yimso halacha brura mishnah brura makim echad. They won't find. Torah will be, but it won't be clear cut. They won't have a klora halacha. They won't have a halacha brura, a psak halacha without machlekes, or a mishnah brura with the correct girsas and the correct versions are. There'll be machlekes. Torah won't be forgotten, but losalovai, they won't have that clarity that knows clearly what the halacha is without machlekes.